walking away from feeding those things because I didn't want it in my animal's body. I don't want to put it in my body. I don't want to put it in my kids, my grandkids, or anybody else's for that matter.
Are you ready to unveil wisdom and insights beyond conventional healthcare and nutrition? Welcome to the Radiant Health and Wellness Show. Throughout each episode, we explore perspectives designed to empower you and activate your radiant health, wellness, and vitality from within as you make your body your ally on your journey to optimal well-being. I'm your host, Dr. Beata Hadashim, specializing in gut health for digestion, weight loss, anxiety, fertility, pregnancy, and breastfeeding. Make sure to click the subscribe button and share with anyone you think would benefit. These episodes are for educational purposes only, and please consult with your physician or a practitioner before making any changes. Let's go. Your journey to radiant health starts here. Welcome everyone to the Radiant Health and Wellness Show. My name is Dr. Beata. I'm a holistic and integrative doctor. And today we have a very special episode with one of my dear friends who I've known for quite a few years now, Christina Traeger from Rolling Hills Cattle Company. And she is a fantastic resource for anyone who's looking for really high quality, clean meat, but also food allergy families. And that's something that we're going to go deeper into today. So I'd love for all of you to help me welcome Christina. And I'd love to hear just a little bit about kind of your background and your farm to start with, and then we'll kind of see where the conversation takes us.
Good morning, Beata. Thank you for having me. Thank you, folks, for watching. I am a fifth generation farmer, and I farm by myself. I raised my kids farming. Now I'm working with my grandkids, but we also are very passionate about the food allergies because everybody has them. We're born into a family that food allergies, and we know all about this stuff, and it's been something generations deep. I don't know if that makes us special or weird or what, but here we are.
And it's becoming more and more prevalent, so much more, just as I think our environment becomes more polluted and toxic, and the food supply. So that's why it's so important to have resources like you as well. And I mean, how we met is so unique and just, again, beautiful. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We'll go into the story in a minute. But so many of you know that my daughter had severe food allergies as a baby. And while we were breastfeeding, it was more so my diet, right? And figuring out what I could eat, which was important as well. And then when it was time to introduce foods to her directly, I was in this place where it was just like, well, what do I feed her? And I knew more or less what some of her biggest triggers are just from our experience. And then it was figuring out the nuances of her diet. And meat was one of those things that I knew she did well with, but it was what kind of meat and then what they were eating as well, like the animals themselves. And so I was on kind of the food allergy, like boards and forums and groups and things like that. And I was really looking for something because my daughter was very, very sensitive to corn specifically, but also soy. And finding someone who doesn't feed their animals corn and soy is pretty rare. And even again, organic farmers, local farmers, many of them do contain corn and soy in the feed. And when we're looking at, certain animals, and we're talking about like pigs and chicken specifically in my mind right now, right? When they're eating corn and soy, some of that can still become something that someone who's very sensitive can become triggered with that even. So it's this indirect way that we have to be really aware of food allergies for some of us. And so I had that experience with my daughter, and I had to, again, figure out like, how am I going to feed her? And I remember connecting with Christina, and it just so happened that some of her family was actually, and so she's from Minnesota. So we're talking about one end of the US, and I was in Connecticut. So completely the other side of the US. And it just so happened that some of her family were going to be driving out to the East Coast. And we happened to meet up. And again, it's such a blessing. we put in our order, and Christina is going to find at some point my order slip from a couple of years ago. And they had a trunk full of meat for me. And I don't know, I think it was your parents, you said, right, that were coming through. I don't know if they remember, but I mean, I had tears welling up in my eyes. We met up on like a little exit off the highway. And I mean, just like this trunk full of meat that I knew my daughter was going to be able to eat and thrive on and be healthy on. I mean, there was just so much gratitude, and like the synchronicity of that was unbelievable. And it was just like meant to be. So again, my daughter did great on it, and from that was healing and able to tolerate more and more. So again, thank you. And I don't know if you want to share anything about that experience as well, because I know you have those experiences quite often with food allergy families.
It seems like it's all ends up being divine timing.
Yes.
Without that divine timing, when we find each other when we need to. And, we've had that happen. This story happens with other families. And, I never forgot about your story and your situation. We talked on the phone and then you're like, hey, this could work.
Right.
So, then I do a little begging, will you guys meet these guys? And they're like, yeah, sure, we can do that. So, they're going anyway. So, we're all a family of help each other. We're part of a bigger family, even though we're not related. We have lots of honorary family members, and that's just kind of how our family operates. Uh, but we do what we can for each other where we can, and it's how we raise each other up, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. But if we do it through food, when when I was first on Facebook at the very beginning, I saw an article about um, pigs and reproduction in pigs, and they've been having more problems keeping the pigs reproducing properly. And when I was reading about it, I was seeing they were saying, well, the corn and soy causes inflammation, and the inflammation is part of the issue. And I'm like, okay, so if that's affecting their fertility, if that's, the glyphosate is messing with their fertility, if, these different factors, I'm like, okay, well then let's look at how to do organic farming. And they're still feeding corn and soy. It's like, I don't want to feed that. I want to see if we can get rid of the inflammation. So, it took some experimenting and figuring to get it worked out. But having been able to go through this, and do some research on it and like, yes, this makes sense. Or the estrogen effects of soy. Thinking about how boys don't have a deep voice anymore. And, well, when they become men. Um, but we've been running with not only with the allergy people, but the how it affects them. I also learned that it affects pigs in another negative way. If they get too much soy, the it causes the fetal pigs to grow too big, and then the mothers have trouble having their pigs. So, in the United States, babies are smaller than they are, say, in Germany. The people are bigger. So my daughter ran into this where she had a very small baby and she couldn't find clothes for it. Fortunately, she was on a military base and she was able to get clothes from other military families that had little kids, little bitty American kids, because even the preemie babies over in Europe aren't as small as ours are.
That's so interesting. And we were chatting a little beforehand how, there's so much known about animal health and like the correlations and the interactions with food and then animal health. And some of that research is lacking in the human population for multiple reasons. Um, but it's so interesting to be able to take that animal model and, really critically think about that. Well, okay, if it's affecting animals in this way with corn and soy and inflammation, what is it doing to humans? And there's a connection there. And again, some of the individuals and children, that I've worked with and that are in the community, they feel that and they see the difference, right? And even with the small size of the babies and just the sensitivity levels that we're seeing in so many children. And the other thing I want to mention is that for those who haven't watched, I have a whole food allergy masterclass. It's free. And if anyone would like that, I'll link it somewhere below as well. But in that, I go through how food allergies and sensitivities and intolerances, they show up in very different ways. So in some individuals, it is, the anaphylaxis, the hives, the difficulty breathing, etc. And it can show up as eczema. It can show up as diarrhea, constipation, stomach pain. It can show up as even mental health. So ADHD, OCD, depression, anxiety. It is all connected. And so that's just something I want to throw out there, because sometimes people eat something and they go, oh, I just feel so fatigued after, or my brain goes crazy after. That's a sign your body's talking to you and communicating with you that something's going on. And that's where I like to be the health detective and do a little root cause digging, as I call it. And what is the root of that? What's actually going on? What's really creating that? And oftentimes it is food related. And that's why I work so much with therapeutic diets, because when we know how to use food and what kind of food to use to support our health, we can see dramatic changes. And Christina, I know you've had some personal experiences as well of getting into this kind of farming and feeding your animals this way. Would you be able to share a little bit about that too?
Sure. Um, Personally, I can't eat conventional pork. My gut isn't happy with me. So, that was something that I experienced as a kid. Every fall, dad would get a pig, and when mom would make pork chops, it was like, ugh. So, um, I just was like, yeah, can we have something else? And, so I didn't want to eat it. But, at that time, we didn't really understand, even they weren't even having issues with peanut allergies in school yet at that point. So I'm from that old school. Uh, but I grew up through all of that. We watched that happen, and get to be the level that it is as my kids and grandkids are in school, went through school. So it's kind of a tough thing to watch, but as I started paying attention to this, going, I want to eat pork, I want to be able to eat bacon and ham. So how can I grow it so that it doesn't bother me? So walking away from corn, walking away from soy, walking away from wheat, getting rid of those things that have polyunsaturated fatty acids. That's another subject. Um, understanding all that. How many farmers understand this? Probably not too many. But, walking away from feeding those things because I didn't want it in my animal's body. I don't want to put it in my body. I don't want to put it in my kids, my grandkids, or anybody else's for that matter.
Absolutely. And, I also, we've been talking about pork a lot, right? But you also have cattle, and, grass-fed beef is something much more widely known and kind of prevalent nowadays. But even like the grass-fed beef that you're getting at the store, again, it's very different because it can still be grain finished or, supplemented and things like that. So it's important to kind of know the difference, that there are farms available who do no grain for their cattle, and it is fully grass fed. And again, if they are grain fed, sometimes again there's certain weather conditions, etc. Like if they do have to be supplemented, what kind of grains or what kind of thing are they supplementing with? So these are some of the questions that you want to ask. And especially if you're not sure as far as like what standards you want, kind of thing, you always want to ask the questions. And again, local farmers are going to be the best, and then resources like Christina, because Christina also ships nationally, and that's why she's such a fantastic resource, that it doesn't matter where you are in the US, she can get you this level of really high quality meat as well. And so it's important to ask those questions. And we all do the best that we can, but especially if your body is having symptoms, if you are having these mysterious health things going on, it's time to get serious. You do want to have that high quality food because, again, food therapeutic diets can make such a big difference and help you heal. And I did want to, ask about the shipping as well, because now that I'm thinking, do you ship to like Alaska and Hawaii and all that too, or is it just the continental?
It's easiest and cheapest in the continental. If when we start going over the pond, it gets to be much more complex.
Mhm,
So that's something we have to kind of be a little bit thoughtful about, I guess, because getting it there in a couple days' time is almost impossible.
mhm. That's true, right?
But backing up a step to grass-fed beef, um, when people are talking to farmers, it's really important to ask them if they use corn stalks for bedding, if they feed bean stubble hay. Sometimes they will feed that stuff just as fillers to fill in. Then the animal's still consuming part of that plant. Um, not all of them do it. A lot of them don't, but there are some who do, especially in the Corn Belt here, where, the central states where it's something that's a cheap feed. Some of the standards through American grass-fed do allow for them to graze animals on stubble fields. And it's not a practice that I believe in. It's not something I would even consider because it's very hard on the cow's teeth. Um, Cows are generally, the average beef cow in the United States is only 7 years old. My cows live well into their teens. They more than double that number. So we have to take a little better care of them, knowing that they're going to live a lot longer. So, and that replacement cost is really high. So it makes, especially now, that's another whole subject. The cost of food, and does it cost a lot more to eat better quality food? No, it doesn't. Um, you know, if you buy a loaf of bread and you buy a pound of hamburger, you're going to get a 1 pound loaf of bread and you're going to get 1 pound of hamburger. There's a lot more digestible protein and digestible fats in that pound of burger as there is in that loaf of bread. So when we're thinking about what something costs, uh, just because you pay a little bit more for something or pay a lot more for something doesn't mean you're going to need to eat as much as you would if you were getting the 99-cent stuff.
Right. That's a great insight. And it's really true. And I actually just this weekend was talking with someone about that when we eat this really nutrient rich food that our body knows how to digest and is easily digestible, we actually don't need to eat as much. And so it's great that you mentioned that because it's very true that, you may be like per piece, kind of thing, you may be looking like, oh, it costs this much, but over the long run, you're actually getting so much more nutrition from that. So your body's not going to crave eating again, like the crackers and the bread and the, pasta and all the things because all of those takes this much of really high quality animal based protein or and nutrition to get in that same amount. And so it's knowing again how to use nutrition to support your body. And that's one of the areas that I support as well is like weight loss. And that's where people are like, well, what you want me to eat, like high fat and high protein. And I go, yeah, because you know what? You're actually gonna satiate yourself and your body's going to get the nutrition that it's wanting. So then you don't have the cravings and you're not, trying to because that was the thing. I mean, years ago, myself, I was on a weight loss journey as well, and up and down and up and down. And really, my body was just begging for nutrition because I was eating processed foods. I was eating the, protein bars and the sports bars that were making my gut horrible. And, I wasn't actually getting the nutrition. It was all fortified with fake stuff. And my body was craving the real stuff. And that's the beauty of it is once you give your body what it actually needs, you're not starving all the time. You naturally satiate, we're not even talking about calories, but like vitamins and minerals, like just naturally become into balance and you start tapping into what is my hunger really? Your hormones regulate, which again impacts hunger, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on and on and on, but It really is true, from that perspective too. And so you end up maybe even spending less money. I might even go as far as saying that. Because when you think of all the processed stuff, especially if you're trying to get the organic and healthy crackers, you're paying sometimes $6, $7, $8 a box of those. Versus if you had a pound of meat, you're going to get a whole lot more nutrition and satiation that way.
Right. Yep. We see that in the animal feed too. You get what you pay for. Um, you can, we like to pick on alfalfa hay. Alfalfa hay is high in protein, and clover hay is as well. But the first crop, second crop, third crop, first crop generally isn't as good a quality because it's stemmy, because it grows really, really fast when we get this, longer days, warm up and everything else. But as the season goes on, the leaves are bigger, and there's more protein there. When we start looking at what's protein, what's fat, our brain is made of 60% fat. So, if you're craving sugar, your body is saying, I need energy. So putting some fat into your brain, it's going to push you up, but it's going to level there and hold you there for a long time. Where, as we all know, with sugar or starch, you go,
Right, exactly. And that crash, you're getting hangry and you're searching for the ice cream or, whatever it is at that point because you're trying to get your blood sugar back up.
right. So
Absolutely.
it's a matter of, it can be 2 slices of bacon. And I like to pick on pork because a pig's gut is similar to humans. They're a monogastric creature, just like a chicken is a monogastric creature. Their gut system works similar to ours. So what is absorbed and how it passes from them to us is different than a ruminant animal that actually has a giant fermentation vat where they're actually fermenting that feed, and there's bacteria breaking it down and doing a lot different work than what happens in the pigs and the birds.
Right, absolutely. And that's where, some people, um, try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Promote very plant-based diets, and that's something that myself, there's a very limited time and place for that, in my opinion. And then otherwise we need to be nourishing ourselves, and for that reason our body, it's plants are actually harder for our body to digest. And so it's something that, again, the the mainstream nutrition, I would say, guidelines have been kind of skewed for that, where they're saying eat more plants. Well, if you're not feeling well, and so I'm just remembering a example where I went to a vegan restaurant with friends, and oh my gosh, the digestion that I had after that experience. And the funny thing is that they were staying over my house at the time, and so I mean, it was like clockwork. Like each of us were going to the bathroom one after the other, and you could just hear like fireworks going off. And it was
Oh
like,
no.
there's a sign. And they at the time they were vegan, so that was their normal diet. And I'm just going, I felt horrible after that meal. And if that's how you're feeling on a regular basis, again, your body's letting you know that something's not quite right, because that's so hard on our digestive system. Now, again, not to say, there are ways that we can prepare food and make it more digestible. Of course, that's one of the main principles in those therapeutic diets that I work with. But we have to listen to our bodies, and a lot of the time, animal-based foods are actually going to be so much easier to digest. Your body actually knows what to do with them. Your body recognizes them. Your digestive system is going to be able to absorb the nutrients and minerals and vitamins from it so much easier. So again, if you are debating or kind of deciding which way do I go, listen to your body. Like your body's going to give you signs and symptoms. When do you feel fatigued after you eat? When do you feel energy? What's your digestion like? What's your skin like? Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And Christina, I know I wanted to mention your website as well, because is that the easiest place for people to order and to find you?
Yeah. Yep.
So grillandmeats.com, but I'd love to have you kind of share a little bit about how that process works or what that looks like if someone would like to, place an order, and I know shipping and all that are some of the questions that people may have.
I have a couple different places where you can place orders. One of them is directly from my website. On my own website, I don't take money online, so it seems a little weird, but I haven't figured that part out. I'm a farmer, I'm not a techie person. So I work with another group called choplocal.com. So if you put choplocal.com/grillin-meats, you can get to that link on my website and then you can order stuff there. Only thing is only certain items are on there. I don't have everything on there. So if you do place an order through Chop Local, you can pay for it online and they calculate the shipping and stuff there. But otherwise, just send me a text message and expect that it's going to take a week or two. It's not going to be a fast turnaround because I usually only ship on Mondays and Tuesdays, so that the stuff gets to you before the end of the week. Local stuff, usually is there the next day, but everything else we ship 2 days so that it for sure gets there. We don't use dry ice, so we have to get it there quick enough. I prefer to do less shipping in the summer just because it takes more ice packs and it adds a lot more weight. But the nice thing is the packaging is donated and the ice packs are donated, so I don't have to buy those. So I don't have to charge you for them either. So, we try to do what we can to, recycle. And of course, all of our product is all brand new, but our meat will store for 7 years in the freezer. So if you need to order stuff, a bigger order, and if you can afford to do that, then you don't have to ship it as often. And, we can get a box filled full and it will hold longer. When we get into the specialty food products, like sausages and stuff, those things are hard to ship just by themselves, or just a pound of liver, very difficult to ship by itself. But because liver thaw is one of the first things to thaw out. So depending on what it is, without getting really lengthy about it, there's always some challenges with shipping stuff, but we've successfully shipped stuff all over the place. And you know birds are a little trickier to ship because of the way they're shaped, but I plan accordingly. I'll put soft ice packs and then throw it in the freezer and let it freeze into a block so that it is a little bit better protected. And if stuff thaws out, don't worry about it, just refreeze it. Meat can be frozen twice.
That's great to know. Yeah. And I mean, I know so many food allergy families have found you and worked with you. And I just want to mention that as well. You're such an amazing resource. And so many families, again, like they've thrived on your meat. And so that's the big thing I want to get out there is that especially food allergy families, people looking for really, really high quality meat that isn't fed corn, isn't fed soy. Christina is your go-to, especially if you're, don't have anything local to you and need something. She has that national shipping availability. And, I know you've been very responsive and things like that. Is it okay if people like send you a text and they're like, can I ask you a question or kind of thing? Is that?
Absolutely. Yep. And just know that I might take me a minute to get back, but I'll get back to you if I'm not right in the middle of something. If you're gonna call me, send me a text message first so that I know who's calling. And because I get way too many calls a day like everybody else. And when you have a business, your phone never stops ringing.
Exactly. Oh, so good to talk with you, Christina, and catch up and again, help spread the word about this amazing resource that you are. And actually, I think you have something on your website, a freebie too. Is that something that people can sign up for?
Absolutely. Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I'm trying to remember which one it is.
I know. I don't want to put you on the spot. I know, I think it was some kind of calculator, I want to say. I don't know. Let
Oh
me
yeah, yeah,
think.
the food budget calculator. Yep,
Oh,
and it's a free thing. You just go on the website. You can just local or healthy foods budgeting. It shows you how you can stretch your food dollar um, and buy better quality food at the same time. So, don't be afraid that better food costs more. It doesn't matter if you're gaining weight, losing weight, or trying to feed somebody who has a special dietary need. Better quality food, you just don't have to eat as much. and you get way more out of it. So using that calculator, it's a whole page on my Facebook or on my website that you can just click on that and it'll take you to it, and you can read all that stuff and use it to your advantage.
Awesome. Such a great resource. I mean, it's like, who isn't on a budget nowadays? We need to all, take a look at that. And again, it is so doable to have good food on a budget as well. Perfect. Thank you so much for chatting today, Christina. It's wonderful to connect again. And again, I'll include all of the links and the resources below as well for anyone who'd like to take a look at those. And again, feel free to reach out to Christina or myself if you have questions as well. And we're here to support you and help you on your health journeys, on your food journeys, wherever you are. So sending you all so much love, and we will see you on the next episode of the Radiant Health and Wellness Show.